court hat before.
court hats. That's what I've never done either.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
I don't know if my brim's a bit too bent. Is that cool these days? I don't really know.
Yeah, it's very cool.
That's good. Lloydie's been wearing his, but I can't wear mine because like I got to keep the footy shirt hats.
Oh, of course,
yeah.
That's your brand, man.
I put it on once because I take it off with the footy shirt hat back on.
All right, so I think we're streaming on all the platforms. Yep, we're good to get going. Cool. G'day listeners and welcome back to another episode of the Keeper League podcast. We're the AFL fantasy podcast that doesn't talk about the superstars. We only talk about the lesser knowns and the players that are going to bring value to your draft and Keeper League teams. My name's Hef and I'm joined by my usual co-host Dossie. How you going, mate?
Good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. And joined once again by Checkers filling in for Kaes. How are you, mate?
Back-to-back weeks. Yeah, good
to have you on, mate. Yeah, good to have you back. Now, you've had an epic weekend. You might want to tell the listeners what you did over the weekend. So
I got back from Melbourne this morning at about 6 a.m. So, yeah, I've been over there for the last 4 days. Other than seeing some of the best games of football of the year, we did a lot of TikTok and video type work and yeah, it was pretty crazy.
Just run the listeners what 3 games you got to watch over the weekend.
So there's the Friday night draw. We had Richmond Fremantle with the Noah Cumberland play on. I don't know. The Noah Bolter chase down Shepherd, Smother.
What was the vibe in the crowd when that happened?
So flat.
Yeah, right.
Like confused because you couldn't hear the siren because everyone was cheering the Cumberland mark because they were like, Richmond fans went nuts singing like, this is it, we've got our score.
Yep.
And then the siren sounded as everyone was cheering, and no one knew it was when. And then they just looked up at the scoreboard and saw the time had stopped, and players were hugging, and were like, "What?"
So what's the next game?
The next game was the Saturday night Jamari Ugle Hagen coming of age game.
Oh, it's about time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Just before I got here, I just got out of the car and it was like a comparison like Buddy's breakout and Jamara's breakout. And it was like an AFL post or something. And it was literally almost like identical points of their career. I think Buddy kicked 6, Jamara kicked 5. So it was
Holy shit.
Yeah, it was pretty electric. Doggies fans very up and about now. They could probably make finals.
Yep.
And then Sunday night, we skipped the GWS Carlton game because we'd already been to Marvel twice, and we went to the MCG and sat amongst 70,000 people who all watched Jamie Elliott kick a goal after the siren.
I don't think you could get a better 3 games to watch like back to back win a weekend to actually attend ever in history. Like you never get that. So
it was nuts.
Yeah, well, lucky you got that. I got to watch some fantastic games. No, actually, the Port game wasn't too bad. Like apart from the fact we lost, but the North Melbourne Hawthorn game probably didn't live up to those standards. That's for sure.
Mighty Weagles as well for me.
You got that one, but at least you're a Weagles fan though. You get to cheer on your boy Jai Culley, which we'll talk about a bit later. That's all right. But if you haven't noticed, if you're on the stream or you're watching any of the TikTok clips during the week or the social clips, we're wearing some Marmalade hats at the moment. So that's your little crew that you do talks with and interview people outside of games. Where can people buy these? Or
we're still undecided. We're thinking maybe this is a bit like the fantasy hat. You have to like
earn it.
Ooh, yeah, you have to. We might do a few giveaways or at the moment, I'll tell you the only people that have one: myself, Lloydie, cameraman, you 2 guys, John O'Brown, Kane Corns' kids. And Campbell Brown.
Very exclusive.
Very exclusive company that we're joining. We are not worthy.
I don't think so. We're definitely the most famous out of those, aren't we, Dusty?
It might be a bit of like that whole fantasy because we're not overly big on like selling merch. It's not we're not in it for the money, but it's just like be cool to have kids or and
they look bloody awesome as well.
Send us some good videos or send us some torps and we might send you a hat.
It'd be kind of cool just to see one out in the wild as well. Yeah, like driving down the street and you see one out there. So you wonder how they got that.
I reckon mine might end up like your footy show hat, mate. I just might wear this everywhere until you can't recognise the colour or anything left.
It is a pretty sweet hat, although the marmalade orange, it's a good colour actually. You can't really won't get too dirty. Be fine.
That's mustard, mate, not orange. Come on.
I thought marmalade was orange. It's made of oranges.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, we'll get stuck in the show in a second. But Checkers, we got one more thing to kind of pick your brain about. So we were with one of your league mates last Wednesday night at the AFL Fantasy Live shows.
Oh yes.
And we discovered a bit of a trade that happened between you two. So you're a mad St Kilda fan, right?
Yeah.
And you've traded Jack Sinclair for Andrew Gaff. When you walk us through that
let's walk us through this one.
All right, so at the time, I was dishing out trade requests, trying to offload Sinclair, thinking that maybe his 5-round average was a bit of a blip and that Hunter Clark would come back, Nick Caulfield would come back. There's a few players at St Kilda that were out of the team at the time, and he was dishing up maybe high 80s and 90s early in the year. And, I was like, could probably, like, trade... What's the term? Buy
low on gaff.
Yeah, buy low on
high.
midfielder who's missing the first bit of the year. He had COVID or something, and then trade high on Sinclair when his value was high. And it wasn't really Gaff was the man I wanted, but I really needed a midfielder because I was one short in my league, and I was like shopping around. No one was biting. And then, someone finally bid on Gaff, and I was like, that'll work out all right back end of the year because at the moment, just for comparison, I'm running like Harry Schoenberg and like middle of my midfield. It's very, very thin midfield. I went deep in the defence and forwards. So
it's so rough.
Before you slap me across the face for trading out Sinclair. Yeah, I mean, I've got like Sard and Perryman on the bench.
And as a Saints man, you would have probably seen patches like that before at the start of the season. And looking at his average, he's beating his best career average in what year is this for him? Year 7.
Yeah.
And he's beating his best average by nearly 30 points. So it's amazing. Like, I mean, it's pretty unlucky from your end, but...
Not over it. Like, I think next year could come better. Like, who knows? Once those young guys come back inside, I'm obviously at this point in time, like, that's gross. But
mate, I think you lost the trade.
Nah.
There was pretty funny because on the night, Calvin actually had a song about Andrew Gaff as well that he sung, and then we ended up talking about him in that trade.
Yeah, I just found it randomly. I'm like, wait, this trade happened?
with the other party as well.
Yeah.
He showed us the other night. So then,
devastated I couldn't make those nights at the highway.
Yeah, bloody good fun. And
that was Costas that showed us.
But awesome as well just to meet a few listeners on the night as well, especially on the Thursday night. There's quite a few people that listen to the show there as well that come up and said g'day. So thanks to those people who did come and say g'day. It's kind of flattering to know there's that many people out there listening to either the Keep League or the Pod. So it's kind of nice. Dossie was drawing all the attention to himself wearing a Buzz Lightyear t-shirt and a
Light years ahead of the
fake AFL Fantasy #1 hat.
Mate, that's not fake. I told you they've sent that out in prepreparation for my win this year.
It's a pretty dodgy design if that's the case.
There's a good group chat I was in, and I think you might have been our group chat. I'm not sure, but one of them so people were discussing the highest hat numbers they could see in the room.
Oh right.
And there was this guy who was listing. He was taking photos from his table, zooming in across the room, taking photos of every hat he could see. It would have been about 30 hats in the room, I think. And he was, I think the highest might have been maybe 13 or something.
Yeah,
but it was just I was in Melbourne. I couldn't attend, but I'm the group chat going. It's pretty funny. Like this guy's scouting hats at the highway.
Wonder if they saw the #1 in there.
Yeah,
stuck on with paper and glue.
Anyway. There's no evidence on that. No, people actually asked me about it. It's like there's no way that's real. And then I was like, no shit.
Season 1 is the first. Yeah.
It's legit. The paper was legit falling off, and the coloured in AFL Fantasy logo was the wonkiest piece of shit I've ever seen. So my 3-year-old does better art than that. But anyway, let's get stuck in, but not before we talk about our great sponsors, Manscaped. So lads, Father's Day in Australia is just around the corner, and our friends at Manscaped are here to ensure all their father figures out there are looking daddy material this June. So Manscaped's Performance Package 4.0, which includes Signature Lawnmower 4.0, is the perfect bundle to tackle any and all old man hair from head to toe. That's right, here is no dad joke, Dossie. Treat your old man, and yourself actually, and join the 6 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code KEEPIT20 at manscaped.com. Trust me, his dad bod will thank you later. I think the big one for the dads is the weed whacker, the nose trimmer.
Oh, yeah.
Dad's definitely going to trim the nose.
My old man could use one of those, I reckon.
Yeah.
My old man, by the way, claimed that he was going to get a big fat W over the Statesman in Classic this week. It's only like his second year of playing Classic.
Yeah.
Claimed, I've got this in the bag. He was like looking at the matchup. He's like, nah, I've got him. Went down by 300. So
geez, got close. Well, maybe you can give him a weed whacker, just make him feel a bit better. So might have a big dub there. Anyways, let's get stuck into the round rewind. That was a good 8-minute chit chat to start. Nice. All right, let me find the round rewind clip. Camera's looking good. Just check the stream. Oh, no messages. Really is the back end of the year. All right. Cool. All right. Anyways, let's get stuck into the round rewind. First game of the weekend was Richmond versus Fremantle. Checkers, you were at this game. Tell us what you saw from a keeper league or draft perspective.
Keeper league or draft perspective, there wasn't a whole lot going on here. Scoring wise, quite a low scoring game, and it was a low scoring game on the scoreboard as well. It was only 50, under the roof at Marvel, I think 52 to 52. There wasn't no wind or weather factors that should have really affected this. The standouts I got written down in my notes on my phone on the night, I put it down that Noah Cumberland would be a player for the future, and we were discussing it, me and Lloydie, the other guy from Marmalade, we were really discussing it on where he fits, because Tom Lynch is currently out of the side. Tom Lynch is obviously their number one forward and will be coming back as soon as he's back from injury. There's no way that Cumberland will ever keep him out of the side. But Jack Riewoldt, it's his time potentially coming to a close at Richmond, and maybe with Dusty leaving and Cochin potentially retiring, and will that be the end of Jack Riewoldt? And that opens up a spot for Noah Cumberland next year, because he was very, very exciting. He's been very, very exciting in his first 3 games.
I haven't really watched David Richmond over his first 3 games, but his fantasy scoring has been fantastic.
So. No, his games, I haven't watched his games, the first 2 games that he played, but I mean, you've obviously seen the scores and seen
he's
his
kicking goals.
The scoreboard.
Yeah.
He kicked 1 goal on the night, 1 goal, 1, and then obviously had that mark that he played on back, the infamous play on, but could have kicked 2 there, and he's just exciting. He's strong hands, got a good frame, moves well around the ground. And if Lynch is going to play deep forward, then it could be a very handy centre half forward.
They're saying he's got a bit of a boom and peg. They're saying on the broadcast, I don't know if you watched it, they were like really, upset for him that he didn't take the kick, because they reckon he could have made that. Because it was, it was right on 50, wasn't it? That
shot he marked about 55 out. So I think he would have had a kick from 60.
I think the plan makes sense, because if he could have taken 2 steps and just slammed it, he would have got a bit closer.
He only needed a point, really. Yeah. So
if he went back and was on the mark, he would have had to kick from further out. So,
Well, they were just saying, though, that they're like, I reckon he's got it in him because he's got that big kick. But
you can see in his head he just wanted to fucking smack it through for a point.
Absolutely.
Even before the game, because I hadn't seen him play, and neither had Lloydie, we were just discussing like him kicking set shots, because he was kicking set shots from like 60, and it was just it was exciting to watch. He's got a nice kicking technique, and I think a good set of hands, and I don't know, he's probably in a lot of keeper leagues right now that haven't been picked up, and if you got a bench spot and you're looking to play for next year, or probably not making finals this year, could be one to stash away. But
talking about like the key forward role, though, he's only 183. Like there could be room for him in amongst those other guys. Do you think it's just the way that Richmond
play,
play,
a Jack Riewoldt role, which is what we're discussing, but his set of hands were like really sticky
plays
hands.
Plays bigger than he is.
Griffin Logue, who in my head I always thought he was a defender, but
he's been playing forward a bit this year.
He lined up in the ruck and also kicked the first goal of the game.
Okay, there you go.
So forward sort of ruck role, and I'm thinking with Rory Lobb out of the side, and then all these trade rumours of Lobb going at the end of the year as well. Josh Tracy's one that wasn't playing, but that forward ruck role at Fremantle was obviously could be a spot open up with that Lobb trade rumour. I don't know if Griffin Logue is the full-time replacement for that. If I was Longmuir, I'd be looking at Josh Tracy, but flagged it that he was playing that forward ruck role with Lobb out. So
unless
scored 64,
they might get one other person to fill that void for $1 million.
Who knows?
Potentially, depending how much money they want to dish up. But
if that does happen, though, it kind of sucks that he's in tandem with another ruckman, though.
Yeah. As in, for like the fantasy. You want him to go to West Coast for the fantasy.
Exactly.
Even hearing yesterday, it was on the set of the footy show. And
talking about Luke Jackson for any listener.
Luke Jackson. But Damien Barrett was talking about potentially that Fremantle might even look at trading Sean Darcy if they get Jackson in, because they'll need to get some salary space.
And he's a Melbourne boy, isn't he?
He's
from Vic.
It could be a mess. The Fremantle could be a mess at the end of the year with the trades, and if they want to bring in Luke Jackson, we've seen when they teams bring in massive ruckman. What did Collingwood signed Grundy on a massive ruck deal, and they screwed the whole team. They had to trade out Stevenson and Phillips and everyone else. So I don't know if they're going to dish up $1 million contract or something along those lines.
If you're ever going to do it for a ruck, though, like this is obviously not fantasy chat, but if you're ever going to do it for a ruck, you do it when he's 20, not like they did with Grundy when he's already like middle of his career kind of thing.
Yeah,
I think that's the difference.
You get his best years out of him.
Yeah.
And then on rucks as well, notice that Nankervis lined up at full forward and played a pretty trash game, to be honest. He was a bit of a decoy forward.
Yeah. Was he under an injury cloud?
He has had that injury cloud, but he didn't seem to be moving very bad. Like, I thought he moved pretty well, and he did go in the ruck at times. He wasn't. Just that Soldo was the number one ruck, Nank was playing that decoy forward. I wonder whether because they were holding Cumberland, who's not quite as tall, they used Nank as that sort of taller body down forward, even if he was just to compete. But yeah, playing Rewalt, who's quite small, and Cumberland, who's quite small for key tools.
I just want to touch on, it just brings me to my sob story that I didn't get to tell at the start of the show. But
good.
I have Nank, who, scored a 44, was playing a lot of forward. The other guys I had in my team this week, in my keeper home league, fucking Tim Kelly.
Was he a -3 at quarter time?
And Patrick Dangerfield.
Oh, God.
So I had a combined 50 from 2 of my premium midfielders and a 44 from Nank, not to mention a guy for Collingwood that you'll touch on later who also had a 34 for me in my forward line in Darcy Cameron. So anyway, that's my sob story.
Those are my two rucks in Classic at the moment. So.
Yeah,
awful.
But anyway, Soldo scored 72, had 22 hit-outs and definitely played that number 1 role. Don't know if it's just that Tom Lynch out of the side and needing to play a big body up forward, and Nank obviously in the injury cloud. But I've heard Ruckman speak before, and when they're under an injury cloud, most of them don't want to play forward because where you do get bashed and crashed around a bit. So I'd wipe the injury cloud away from it. I'm more thinking about when Tom Lynch comes back. It might have just been to take a key body away.
Do you think that Shawnee Das too, maybe the Shawnee Das factor of being so huge that they don't want to just get smashed, like with Soldo being more of a tap ruckman than Nank?
Yeah, I don't know. Bit of a weird one. I'm trying to think. Did Shawnee Das... He didn't really light it up. He had 28 hit-outs and Soldo had 22. So Soldo, he played a very good game. So I had him in my notes as like standout game. And we know he's pretty young and hasn't had a crack at number 1 role yet. So... That's all I really had to take away. I wasn't massive fantasy takeaways from that game.
That happens. It's all good. All right, we'll move on to North Melbourne versus Hawthorn. Now, I've got 3 games back to back here, guys. So
here we go.
Took the Saturday shift. Checkers in Melbourne, Dossie playing footy loosely, watching his team play. He's a bit injured at the moment, but I understand. You got to go support your boys, so it's fine. You do. It's fine. I used to always have to do that when I was injured. But anyway, as much as I wanted to stay home and watch footy. North Melbourne versus Hawthorn. Bailey Scott had 88 points. I'm just going to 2G4P him. He hasn't done the 480s in a row, but no one's leaving him on a waiver wire at the moment, so he's got to be 2G4P. He looks legit like one of their best players at the moment. I'm just worried about the wing time a bit, though, because, if he's listed as a defender, he was playing on the halfback until about 3 weeks ago, since he came back from his injury. Since he's come back, he's been playing on the wing because Lockie Young's been carving back there and Aaron Hall's come back in that time and everything. So
and Jado.
And Jaden Stevenson, not so much this week, but he's back there now. You're right, he's taking the spot. Yeah. So, just worried about that wing time. Hopefully he just kind of, doesn't do enough on the wing over the last 6 weeks to lose that back status. Hopefully they're kind and keep it there for another year, but that's the only concern because I don't like him as much as a midfielder, but as a defender at the moment, he's going awesome. Lockie Young, 85 points, so I assumed he only went well when Hall was out of the side, but he's involved in a lot of that link-up play in half-back. 7 tackles in defence. Had a big last quarter as well. I think it was like a 50-point last quarter, so he's shown a bit of scoring power there as well. He's averaging 82 from his last 3, so he's going okay at the moment.
Jeepers.
So, I think he had 1 up week, a down week, and then he's had 2 up weeks or something like that. So, I think he's even past he's just under the waiver wire threshold of 65% as well. So he'll be kind of taken up.
7 tackles for a key defender is pretty solid.
Yeah, he's not really playing as a key as much though, because they got Core and they've got what's his name, McKay back there. So he's kind of playing that third kind of taller running option, intercept option, but it's not really intercept. He just gets involved in the chip around basically and just tackles.
2 weeks in a row, that 8 tackles last week, 7 tackles this week. Just pretty good for a
that's where his skin is
defender
scoring.
then.
Yeah. Jed Anderson had 85 points, more time on ground this week, so up to 73, so that's another 5% on last week. But also more CBAs than last week as well. Had another 5 CBAs added on to his tally. It's just as simple as that, really. That's where the 85 points came on as opposed to his, 60-odd last week? Or was it 50? Can't remember. It's pretty gross. But more time on ground, more centre bounces, more points for Jed Anderson. That's just how it works. Finn McGuinness factor, Hawthorn, moving on to them now. So he's tagging someone every week. Yeah. He's tagging Simpkin this week. Now, he's got St Kilda coming up. And I think Sydney were pretty successful putting Ryan Clark on Sinclair earlier.
Yeah.
I reckon Sinclair's going to be the one who cops the tag. I think a few people on Twitter saying he's going to go to Steele. But
unless it's Jack Steele after he's 40.
But I just don't see the point of tagging Steele because he's like that real contested tackler type anyway. Like, he gets all his fantasy points from tackling. He gets his possessions from just being in that contest. Like, I don't think you're really going to negate him too much by tagging him, but someone like Sinclair, you're really going to stop a lot of runs. So I've got a feeling that he goes to him this week and probably going to shut that scoring down as well, which is going to suck. But just be wary of that. Just if you're thinking about putting the VC
We've
or
got
C
a few
on
bloody
Sinclair.
taggers come up late in this season, haven't we? Just popping in,
a lot of them
ruining our
halfback
captains.
Flank type, defensive forwards
really
as well,
going to that role.
But anyway, Jack Gunston had 118 points, 5 goals. It's still a tip of the cap for me. Kaes will probably still recommend picking him up every preseason because it's just a given that he makes his article at the start of the year. Pick up Jack Gunston.
He's playing North Melbourne, so
exactly.
Just give him that one.
But I'm looking elsewhere from now on. Exactly, the North Melbourne factor is a big one. Now, Blake Hardwick has had some decent scores recently. Now, Impey's been playing up forward. Lockie Bramble's out for the season. He was back there a bit. And now Will Day, Will Day was back in defence this week, but he was forward last week. But Will Day just could not find the footy at all. So, just a lot of chip around defence, couple solid intercepts as well. Like, he's just been solid the last few weeks. I think, Impey being a forward now is kind of just freed up a lot of ball for him back there. So, Blake Hardwick is one that's scoring pretty well at the moment.
He's also launching massive bomb torps out of fullback.
That's right.
Bigger than James Sicily's.
Yeah, I saw Sicily's one the other week, but loves a bomb. Jack Scrimshaw, kind of like the same. He was there was a crowded backline back there, so he's kind of picked up as well since it's opened up a little bit. He had 87 points. Just used as a target coming out of defence as well. Sometimes on that kind of, pushing up to the wing and kind of leading back and kind of being that second kick out. So he's just had a bit more freedom back there, I think, as well. So he's going well. Now, Will Day, I guess we've got to talk about him. I had him chat about him just before. He was back in defence and just couldn't find it. But I think I'm still holding on for next year. I think he just needs a solid preseason and needs to lock down one role and stay with it, I think. So I think
we're all on the same page there. It's a weird one. It's a weird one.
Yeah, it was like last week. It was like Sam Mitchell will find his best spot.
Yeah, that's right.
And ideally his best spot is down back. So he did get moved around. He did get shipped around. He didn't play a great game at forward. So Sam's moved him to a new position. It might take a couple of weeks for him to gel back into the defence.
I'm writing off this year. I don't care what he scores this year. I'm actually benching him at the moment and loopholing on if he does okay.
I'm with you, mate. But I think keep the faith. Will Day long term. He's a good talent. It'll come right. Like, it's just one of those weird. It's not his sophomore year, but it's like a sophomore slump. Isn't it his third year this year?
Yes, it is. But he missed pretty much
injury,
all of last
year. Coming back off.
And then missed the first half of this year as well. Last one, Dossie. Now, Ned Reeves, you said you wanted to see him, put up a good performance against a good ruckman. Is Goldstein, Callum Coleman-Jones good enough for you?
Maybe Goldstein.
Yeah. That's a good combo, though.
No, that is a good combo. Tough to get some big hit-out numbers against them.
In fairness, he did a lot of his scoring up forward. Kicked 2 goals, took a few grabs up there as well. But that's the one thing that I think was hindering him the last few weeks. So it looked like when he was in the ruck, he was okay. He'd go forward when McAvoy would go back in there and he couldn't actually put up any scores. I'm just happy to see him kick a few goals and actually put up a good score. I know it's North Melbourne.
I'd like to get check his opinion on this because I don't reckon we've brought him in on this topic. But what's your Lynch Reeves vibe going forward?
I'm a big Max Lynch fan.
Everyone bloody is.
Yep. Where I almost had Max Lynch in my fantasy team round 1. Even though I don't think he played round 1, did he? Or did he play round 1?
No, he didn't play round 1.
It was a real big debate. I think 2 weeks out from the season, I put a tweet up and it copped a lot of heat.
I think he got injured or something though, didn't he? Right,
it was a weird injury. It was like a burn or something. It was like a rash or an.
No, he got a bee sting. And then he got concussed, and then it was weird.
He had a real rough run at it, but
he got concussed twice in this season.
Knowing some people at Collingwood, they just couldn't speak higher of him. The word coming out of Collingwood last year was Max Lynch was freakishly Grundy, really good around the ground, really good hit outs. He was tearing up the VFL.
Yeah, he's had some big numbers in the VFL. That's why Kaes and I have been big on him.
I don't mind him from a fantasy perspective. I just just watching him. He has not had the tank to keep up with an AFL game of football yet.
But then he's also had that interrupted season now with the concussion, the bee sting, coming to a new club. Yeah, it's a tough one. And then Ned Reeves is playing good footy as well. It's not great footy, but he's putting in a good audition to sort of that number 1 role.
Just with Reeves, he's had now, I think he's had 4 scores in his really short career. He's had 4 scores above 80 and a few 70s here and there. In my breakout tracker where it tracks every player on their career rolling average against the best players in the career at the same point, the same number of games. He's above the top 5 rucks in the comp in terms of his fantasy scoring anyway. So
he's older though. He's 23.
24.
Already.
They're both 24, both of them.
I've got 23.
Oh, 23?
Both 23.
Okay. Yeah, maybe they have turned 24 since. But anyway, they're pretty similar in age. They're pretty similar in age. So, it's going to be interesting. But
what I'm saying is, though, your breakout trackers doesn't take into account age is what I'm saying. So they might be tracking against...
But look at all the ruckmans in the ruck comp. No one debuts at 18, 19. They all start late.
True. All right. All right, ease up.
Anyway, we'll move on to the next game. Game at 2 of 3 for Hef. I've been dying to talk about this one for ages. I'm just dying for this guy to actually do something worth talking about. But Dylan Stephens, 108 points, played a very, very good game. So he was on the wing, but got back into positions where like he was just receiving the ball in the back of the contest and things like that. Had that bailout kick a lot, but then also kind of worked his way up the ground and kind of, took a few grabs on the wing. He was playing on Mitch Hinge, I think, for a lot of the day, and a little bit on Saligo as well. So he was going okay. Probably needs to do a few if he's going to keep his spot in the team long term, which I think he's all right for the short term, but long term he just kind of probably needs to lower the eyes a bit. He just bombs it out a bit every now and then and kind of gives it back to the opposition. But he's doing well enough now to keep his spot on the side. So just good to see him put up a fantasy ton. So
I just remember, I think I might have had Sydney last week or the week before, and I was watching the game and I was like, oh man, he's done some really good things here. I looked at the score, I think it was 2 weeks ago, and he had a 39, and I'm like, he was better than that. So it's good to see him get some reward finally, because he's been in the right spots. It just hasn't come out there as much for him.
He's also been just kind of getting up forward as well. Like he's been kicking goals, I think, last 2 games as well. So just when he does go sit up forward for that short amount of time he's up there, he's actually been effective there too, which I think's been good for his game.
It was also his audition game, which is a popular term I've been using already. Lloydie woke me up on Saturday morning to go to the pub to watch Sydney Adelaide, and because it was on the same time, we're watching them split screen at some random pub in Melbourne, I don't know. And he goes, audition game. Watch out, Dylan Stephens before the game. So
good call.
Put in his multi and it worked out all right.
Awesome. Next one is a guy that's been carving up for weeks now, Robbie Fox. He's so close. He's 1 week away from 2G4P now. So he had 104 points, and Sydney just really possessing the footy, especially in that first half. And Fox has just been a beneficiary of this. So he either receives from the kick-ins or gets involved in that chip around. So his average is super low because he had a 0. I think maybe he came on as a sub real late. But he's only 1 game away from 2G4P. So
I mentioned it last week. It was something just really noticeable in the last couple of weeks where they are just chipping it around in that back line.
I'd love to chat about this one because this is I've got to add in my notes from Saturday, and I was like, this is the hottest take I've got to bring to this podcast.
Go on.
But Robbie Fox, I told Lloydie about this. Obviously, we spoke about him on the podcast last week, and he's been racking up touches, and he's got this good role, and he's scoring good fantasy-wise. I was like, look, if you're doing draft stars today, if you put a multi on, just look at Robbie Fox because he's an undervalued gem. And Lloydie put him for 20 plus touches. We're at the pub and he's wanting to kill me because every other leg of his multi's getting up, and at halftime Robbie Fox on 5 disposals.
Oh, sorry, Robbie Fox was the one that had 50 points in the last quarter, wasn't it?
So he's on 5 disposals.
Mixed up.
Sorry, 5 disposals at halftime. I think at 3/4 time he was on 7 touches. He needed him for 20, right? So, and I go to Lloydie, I look back through his stats and I go, the week before, Robbie Fox had 11 disposals in the last quarter.
Yeah, that's what it was.
The week before that, he had 8 disposals in the last quarter and scored half of his fantasy score in that final quarter. So he's a last quarter specialist because in the last quarter this week, he had 14 touches, 10 kicks, 51 fantasy points. The week before, 54 fantasy points in the last quarter.
It's that possessing the ball to finish the game.
Jake Lloyd factor.
Literally, I was saying, remember last week I said he's gone to the Jake Lloyd school of spread because he just runs back and forth getting these +6s.
Absolutely.
I love it.
And so many marks. It's
such a weird
kicks and marks.
I'd written him off as a fantasy prospect, and he's come good.
Yeah, sorry, I got mixed up there because they're similar type of players.
It's also concerning though because Jake Lloyd is Jake Lloyd. He's so good. Robbie Fox isn't Jake Lloyd, and sometimes players who just rack up in the last quarter, you got to be really good to do it consistently. Like a Doherty or a Jake Lloyd. Robbie Fox he's still breaking out. We haven't seen this consistently, and I'm very worried that maybe 1 week he just doesn't have 14 marks and 10 kicks in the last quarter. And
he's been a lot more locked down like when he's previously played as well.
Because he was on 8 disposals at 3/4 time. He could have very easily ended up with like a 10-touch game and a 50 score.
Just loves getting involved in the end.
He's been one of the best late season waiver pickups. Like you don't usually find someone this late in the season that's like gonna really help you in your finals campaign, and he's come in round 15 and been one of these guys.
We'll move on. Tom Hickey, he was back in the ruck, so he had 88 points. I flagged this last week, essentially with Laddams out injured. He was going to go okay, but not much more to report on that one. Justin McInerney had 86 points. It really was a winger's game. Stevens was good as well, and Mills was on the wing a lot too, and he was good. And Saligo was good for the Crows. So it really just was just a game where the ball was moved along the wings a lot. Justin McInerney moved the ball forward, found a bit of it himself, so he was good. Sam Reid had those 13 hitouts, so every time he does that, he kind of boosts his score from like a high 60s game to an 80s game. So that ruck forward role kind of works for him. Seems to pop up like this every second week. So he's one you should be considering your forward line. Ryan Clark is a pain in the arse for the most part, although he wasn't too bad this week. But he had 82 points himself. Had that defensive role on Dawson early, but then Dawson went forward and just got away from him. So, but he just tackled all day. Had 7 tackles, kicked a goal 2, and then Dawson ended up getting a ton because he wasn't just playing in defence anymore. So, Clark put up a good score himself, so not one I like though because he's going to have to play very defensive every now and then.
He's done it occasionally, tagging, does a very high tackle numbers and then puts up a good score, but it's hard to do that consistently.
Absolutely.
He's like he's also not knee-full these days, but he's also like generally a VFL pig. Doesn't he get like those midfield roles in there?
Yeah,
and he
like 30 touches and 15 tackles.
And then he always has to tag when he goes up. Yeah.
Moving on to the Crows, Jake Saligo had 75 points. He was on Mills for a lot of the game, so he was fine. Just no inside time this week, but solid on the wing. He's going to have a fantasy game in the future, especially if he can get a bit more inside time like he's been flagged to have. We talk about him every week, I think. Now, Harry Schoenberg, boys, so 63 points. Now, he's been disappointing for some this season. Not me. I expected this completely. Harry Schoenberg, flagged for ages. He's no good. But had a fair bit of midfield time in this game, 16 CVAs, still low time on ground. Seems to get himself into trouble a lot. Like his awareness, he just seems to just get the ball in his hands and get tackled straight away type thing. What do you guys think? Do you still hold on hope for Harry Schoenberg? I think he's like one good, like Berry's obviously gone miles ahead of him. I think if Crows kind of go midfield heavy in a draft, he's going to struggle in the future.
Yeah, Matt Crouch probably on the way out. I don't think we see Rory Sloane come back. So you just
got to hold Matt Crouch out now, and like he's not doing much.
Harry Schoenberg just needs another good preseason. Really, like I think you can write off this year, and he's not going to dish up anything left in 2022. But
yeah, just on the back end of last season where he was given all the time in the midfield,
a season where he just like has a full preseason, and they go, mate, you've really got to take charge of your career. Like this is your chance to play. You know, our best midfield slot. We've traded Crouch. We've got Sloane out. We need you to stand up. Sometimes it just clicks. A penny drops for players like that. But
it's been just a disappointing year in the sense that he finished last year so strong, and then this year I had more higher hopes than you. I think Hef, by the sounds of things, I still hold faith.
I don't have no doubts he'll be an okay player if he gets a good run. Like you said, fantasy wise, that's where I'm.
Like you said, it just probably depends on if they want to push Saligo in there, and like guys like Rochelle, if they move into there a bit earlier than expected, then he might be in trouble to hold that spot.
And then if they go
as a pure midfielder,
if they go early on midfielders, like it feels like they will next year. But anyway, Riley Thilthorpe had 37 points anyway. He's taken out of the ruck this week, which was weird because last week they said he was going to be used more in the ruck leading into the end of the season. But I think his CBAs were low again. Did some rucking around the ground, of course, but CBAs were low. So opted with, I think Rob had the most CBAs or second most CBAs for the Crows. So just kind of took him out of there a bit, which
Rob was also slaying it. He played a really
true.
Good game.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. He had like 50 hit outs or something.
From memory. I don't know. It's just because they said
51. Far out.
They just said they were going to use him more, and then
I'm not sure if did we ever find out what his injury was last week that he was carrying? It might have been, I think it was an ankle or something.
Yeah, I don't know. Oh,
it
yeah,
might just honestly, it might just be matchup based though with Thilthorpe.
And like Checkers is right. He did cop an injury real late, didn't he? So
sorry. Yeah, you're right. You are right. Yeah,
that might.
I thought you were talking about
on the cautious side.
Yeah, that's true. That could have been happening. Didn't factor that one in. But anyway, that's it for that game. I'll go into my third game. I'm going to put my feet up. I might actually leave the room after I'm done my games, boys, and leave you guys to it. But anyway.
Sounds good.
Port Adelaide versus Geelong. Alia, tip of the cap, 102 points, 11 marks in defence. That'll do it. But not one you want in your side. I guess week in, week out. Charlie Dixon, though, 94 points, rucking forward, but mainly forward this week, and actually took some grabs up forward, and kicked a couple of snags too. The 7 hit-outs helped him there. The thing is, like, Bryn Teagle's back this week, but it was really like the forward kind of work that kind of got him his fantasy points anyway. So if he can stand up over the last few rounds, take a few grabs, kick a few goals, he might maintain this average that he's been racking up since he's gone into the ruck. So, Jeremy Finlayson, though, he had 81 points, and he's actually doing okay in the ruck, but I reckon Teagle's probably going to come back this week. So
did he play Sample?
Yeah, he did.
Okay.
So and Port Magpies had a win for the first or second time this year or something like that. So I don't know how he went, but it must have been all right if they actually won a game. Miles Bergman, again, we should almost TG4P this guy. This is not quite, but 75 points. Take that from a young player week in, week out. On that wing again. Going to be a superstar breakout candidate next year, I reckon. So goes from there.
Bryn Teagle had 16 disposals, 5 marks, 2 clearances. Doesn't show the hit outs here, but
yeah.
81 ranking points.
I got because they played Hayes as well, and I think Hayes was named as number 1 ruck, and I think
they did too.
Bryn Teakle was named up forward, so I'm not really sure what the go was there, but I reckon he would have had a run. But yeah,
the other thing is when Teakle played that game, he was playing some forward time too. Yeah. So like that might be good for Dixon in what you said that he was playing good at forward.
Yeah,
could still get like the similar amount of ruck minutes that he's getting.
Yeah. Yeah, or it could be a rotation with Finlayson really as well. So we'll wait and see. We did Miles Bergman. Jace Burgoyne had 64 points. From memory, he had 50 points in the first half, I think it was.
Yeah, he was tearing up the first half.
Just went slow in the second half. But showing some good fantasy signs. He had 5 tackles, and there was like a passage play where he had 3 tackles in a row or something like that. So just doing the right things to show you can build a fantasy score here and there. So looks like he's got the game. It might just take 2 or 3 years to get there, but I think I'm
a fan.
Peter Burgoyne wasn't the worst fantasy scorer either. I'd owned him in 1 year and he was fine. So I'm happy.
He's a teenager, so plenty of time to grow.
And he's one of our TikTok followers as well. So
g'day, Jace.
It's good tagging him and stuff because it goes off generally. Graham Myers had 78 points. Now this is moving on to Geelong now. Now Dossie, I think you and Kaes and me a little bit, but I'm not trying to say that I was right. But you guys, I just didn't know enough about him. You guys were pretty keen on him moving to the midfield at some stage. Is that correct?
Who's this? You haven't...
Grime Myers.
Oh, Grime.
Yeah.
I
don't know. Just Kaes?
It might have been. No, I don't think it was me.
No, it must have been Kaes. I think as a junior, he was playing a fair bit of midfield. So I think Kaes was the point. Oh, no, do you guys think he's ever going to be more than that kind of small forward? He scored 78 points on the weekend, so he scored okay. But...
Did he play in the guts, did he?
No, he didn't. Oh, but I'm just saying, like, Kaes was always.
We've seen him off of the halfback flank on the wing and up forward. I don't think he ever go in the middle though.
Yeah,
I don't think he could fit Geelong.
But I don't know. You do see some things happen. Like, I mean, look at, for instance, like a Zach Fisher this year playing, as a midfielder, more as a junior, and he's finally got his chance.
Yeah.
It's possible, but it would happen in the next couple of years when these. When the 33-point Dangerfields of the world move out of there.
I know, Geelong are weird, but
what happened with that, by the way? What happened?
I don't know. He just couldn't find it, and then when he did get it, he was woeful with it as well.
They got a win, and Selwood and Dangerfield barely had it. It's so rare.
Yeah, Porter very hard to score against, but I don't know. He just couldn't find the footy, and when he did, he just didn't do anything good with it either. I'd like to see a Supercoach score because I reckon that'd be pretty atrocious as well.
Who's that for?
Dangerfield.
24 Supercoach.
Yeah, there you go. Max Holmes, 72 points. He's fieldable in the F4-5 position. He's going to lose forward status, though. That's the issue with him. But he might be one of the future that once a few of those older players clear out.
He's the guy that'll move inside.
Yeah,
like he's playing wing at the moment, right?
Yeah,
but he'll move inside because he can tackle.
Yep. Brad Close basically he just looks small, but he'll fill out.
He's so zippy. Actually, I'm just going to keep bringing up Damien Barrett. Damien Barrett gave him a massive rap on the Sunday Footy Show, being like, Brad Close coming age a year, really playing some good footy last 5-6 weeks.
Is that the Sunday Footy Show you were in the studio for?
Yeah. It's just because I had literally for the first time. I'm normally asleep for that time slot on a Sunday morning, but probably these days. When I was a bit younger, I was watching every week. But I watched the whole episode and was sitting there listening to everything they said. But I just looked at his stats. He had 7 score involvements, and he's sort of playing that high half forward. And I think in my head, I'm thinking like they need someone zippy and someone a bit smaller to sort of do those sort of Shy Bolton type movements. He reminds me a lot of him. That he can kick a goal, but he can also play higher up the ground and be involved in those passages of play that create a score involvement.
He's a mature age player, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he's about 23, 24 now.
Yeah, because technically his third year breakout, despite being a bit older. But I don't know. Yeah, do you reckon? I still see there's plenty of growth in his fantasy game because he does, like you say, he's just got that something about him that just goes about it well and gets up the ground, and maybe he's the one that could push inside a bit more.
Have we moved on to Close? Is that what's happened? Or are we talking about Holmes still?
Close.
Yeah, Close. I was going to say, okay, we got real confused then because I forgot I'd moved on. But I agree with that.
He's stuck to his notes.
Yeah, I agree with that. No, I wasn't sure what you're talking about because I hadn't mentioned Close yet, that's all. Or had I? I don't remember. But anyway, we'll move on.
He's lost it. He's lost the plot.
He's already ready to clock off.
I went back to Holmes and then you guys started talking about Close because I said he wasn't big enough or something like that.
We're talking about Brad Close, and you went on this segment about the footy show and talking about Brad Close.
Yeah, no, don't worry. You missed. Okay. You completely weren't listening to what I was saying. I went back to Close, Holmes saying he wasn't big enough, and then we started talking about Close again, and I really crossed over there.
All right, move on, mate.
Anyway, Reece Stanley, he got injured, so Shannon Neal was on the sub, like on the bench, which was kind of weird to have a ruckman there ready to go. But do we see a bump for Blitzars going back in the ruck, or do we see Segler actually come into the side now? So it's at 119 and 71 in the VFL.
Tommy
didn't
Stewart
play on the weekend.
Tommy Stewart suspension.
It ends this week. So he's back in.
That would be good for Blitzars playing in the ruck. Because I was going to say, if Tommy Stewart was still out, they're going to need him down back or playing that sort of
still, like, since he's been out, though, Blitzars has still been rotating. Like, he's been on a wing, because I watched them last week. I had that game. He was on the wing, basically, for the whole game, or for at least half the game as well. So, but I guess Tom Stewart does play that role too.
But it frees up him to go into the ruck. It's just like...
they can do it.
Intercept marker down back. Now we can sort of like...
I think it'll be matchup dependent now. I mean, they've got the Bulldogs this week. You'd think versus Tim English, they just go with Blitzars, I'd think. But if it's like after that... If they got the Saints, that's when you probably see if Stanley's not right to go by then, that they'll bring back in a big ruckman. That's what I would suggest. It's going to be matchup based.
Rowan Marshall didn't
because Segler, they're surely going to give him a shot before the end of the year.
And bring him into final. Like, they brought him in. I reckon they brought him in at the start of the year, and they were pretty keen to play him. It's just the injuries kind of hit, and you want to try to bring him in before finals if you
wouldn't surprise me if he gets a gig. Yeah,
I've got him on the bench in one of my leagues, and I think I've got Paddy Ryder as my number one ruck, which isn't too good at the moment. So I hope Segler does come in. Just the Port factor as well. Just think about it when you're playing or streaming guys against Port Adelaide. So Cam Guthrie 74, he's been killing it lately. Then we talked about Danger 33, Selwood 46, Zach Guthrie 20. So no good there. So with us, Stuart coming back in this week.
Happens to all the greats, but like your Dangerfields, your Selwoods.
It happens at everyone, especially defenders against Port. Like, they're the hardest team to score against. So, but anyway, I'm done for the night. I'll see you boys later. Brisbane versus Gold Coast with Doss. Let's go.
Alrighty, let's get into some exciting players. It was a pretty good game, this one, actually, for most part. I think the last quarter, the Lions just ran away with it, but just a couple of players on the Gold Coast side. I think we've been waiting for this debut for some time, especially in our classic teams. Elijah Hollands. Don't know if you guys have heard that name before, but he's certainly been on the radar of our keeper teams and our classic teams.
I wrote an article about him at the start of the year, actually.
Yeah, I think we thought he was coming in a lot earlier, I think, but look, obviously Stewie Dews had him in the twos. He mentioned at the start of the year he didn't really get our hopes up too much. He said he's going to give him some time and let him develop. He's a guy coming off an injury from last year. I think he missed all of last year with the ACL. He's come in flying in the preseason, looking really good, but Stewie reckoned his body just needed some work. Coming in this one, he looked like he's put on some muscle. He's pretty well built now. Pretty good size too, but he scored 64 points, was in a wing rotation. His numbers weren't amazing, but honestly, the wings weren't really used a stack especially for the Suns' game plan. They just don't really use their wings too much. So he really showed some signs, kicked 2 goals in the first half, could have had a third in the third quarter as well. And one thing I'll notice, he loves running forward on the wing. Like, as you can notice, he got 2 marks inside 50, or 3 marks inside 50, I think, to kick those couple of goals. Didn't see much running the other way, though.
Dylan Shield too.
Quite a bit of forward running. But yeah, he's 20 years old. Looks to come in and make an immediate impact. And to me, he's taken a wing role, and I think for the next couple of weeks, especially given the Suns are now out of that finals race, they're going to just play him every week here, and we'll get a good look at him, I think.
Yeah, I didn't see the game at all.
So one thing he stepped in front of was Jeremy Sharp's wing time in this game. So only the 70% time on ground for Jeremy Sharp, 39 points, 8 touches. Started awesome, but just barely sided after that. And then late in the game, so just for a bit of context as well, Jack Lukosius started forward. So I remember we talked about him last week being like, thank God they've moved him into a spot on the halfback where he can finally rack up. Stewie, vintage Stewie, moved him back forward. And then I think it was late in the third quarter, I saw him sneak up back onto a wing. And he delivered 2 straight away inside 50 to, a couple of marks. And it was just like, okay, well, look where you got to use. You got to use him behind the ball more. But what happened then was basically Jeremy Sharp was, I think we'll see him get dropped again this week. So
that sucks.
Elijah Hollands, though, worth a stash, I think, going forward. Rory Atkins moved onto the half-back line in this game. So with Lukosius moving forward, they slotted in Rory Atkins back there. And you look at the gap that they've had since Lockie Weller went down. It's been a real something that they've been struggling with. They don't have Weller. They don't have Butterick, who was probably the guy that was going to replace him. Rory Atkins, super low time on ground. So I don't know what's going on there. 67%. 21 disposals, 7 marks, had a heap of metres gained, was just absolutely slutting around, getting +6s back there too.
I had this in my notes.
He actually played well. He played well.
A really good role.
Yeah.
And he used to do some Crows a bit as well. He used to play that defensive wing role, maybe more off the halfback flank. But yeah, he had 21 disposals, 15 kicks. So it was a lot of like kick out of defence at like Lockie Weller that we saw at the start of the year in the preseason, taking a lot of kicks out of defence. Not even just kick out, just that back pocket type kick down the wing. And yeah, I don't know. I never knew Rory Atkins as like a great disposal user, but he was using the ball well. And
he was, yeah.
He's just a player that, like, though I've seen glimpses so often, like when he was at the Crows and stuff like that. And I think one year he had back status, and I was like, this is fucking juice because he's going to play on the wing. Yeah. And then he just stunk it up for the whole year. So yeah. It's
not that super enticing, but at this time of the year when you're looking for something, like I'd dabble in a way of a pickup.
Yeah, it might not scrape into next year because you will get Weller back, or you know. Yeah. But if you just scrape in the barrel trying to find someone, he scored 70 odd on the weekend.
73,
low time on ground. If that goes up a little bit, that could become like a high 80, 90 score, which could be very handy for finals.
And while we were saying he was getting some cheap stuff, but it wasn't all cheap as well. Like there was a lot of really positive signs of him driving the ball forward. So
the other thing with Atkins is it reminds me of, like, if he was to play that back pocket role, his whole game at the Crows was like speed and running all day. He's like a massive like athletics.
Well, that's why it was weird low time on ground.
And I'm thinking in my head like Aaron Hall, sort of that 1-2, like running out of defence. If he was using the by foot a lot, I'd imagine if you saw Rory Atkins this week come out and start gaining more confidence, you know, running down the wings and using that sort of like, trying to think who does it. Nick Dacos did it a lot on the weekend, and Aaron Hall does it a lot, and Jaden Short does it a lot, using that like leg speed to sort of push out of defence as well.
Yeah, no, I'm loving it. I'd dabble in a pickup for sure. All right, some other players on the Brisbane side was the Barometer again. He came off a 90 odd last week, had 73 points, but had like 20 centre bounce attendances again, kicked a couple of goals, including one to drive at the start of the third quarter. He loved the celebration. Look, he only had the 18 touches. He was sitting alongside Took Miller, and I initially thought it was going to be a tag, but it was. They both kind of just let each other go.
Just go back to that celebration. It was like he marked it and almost did like a sun god pose. Yeah. And then kicked it and did like, I don't know, it was kind of half bow and arrow, half shotgun. I don't really know what it was, but it was amazing.
I love it. Full beast mode, but yeah, I mean,
he's a strange cat, isn't he?
Yeah, and considering no line turned up in this game, like 73 points isn't a terrible score, and if he continues to have the role, who's missing at their
midfield? I don't think, because they had Berry back this week,
and Zorko played.
Yeah, I don't think there's anyone missing.
So I don't know, 8 contested possessions, only 3 clearances, but. He's probably picked up after last week's performance anyway, but if he's still available, go ahead. And I just had Charlie Cameron for 98 points when he scored 3 snags, I think it was. But I was just remembering last year when we were talking late season in your keeper leagues and stuff, Charlie Cameron sat on the wire for most of the year. The end of the season, so he hasn't scored over 90 since round 6, right? But I was remembering last year, and I want to go back and look and see if I was right. Okay. Yeah, I was right. So from round 21 last year, he did have some easy matchups, but this is his run home last year. 98, 96, 97, 90, 90, 81. That's including finals. I just reckon maybe he ramps it up at this time of year. So I'd also just consider a Charlie Cameron. See what their run's like. I don't know if they've got a super friendly run home, but I don't mind a bit of Charlie Cameron action. I think he starts turning it up at this time of year, starts kicking his goals, starts tackling. He had 8 tackles, I think. Yeah. So he sort of just bides his time during the regular season and comes home firing.
He's one I've always picked up year in, year out real late because he's just the best, a great loophole option because like Brisbane get a lot of Saturday night games. So you've got quite a few players you can still loop on from Sunday. And then like if he kicks 4 or 5, he's scored you a 90 and you can loop him on. This year, Kaes took him before I could. But he's been mine for like the last 3 years, so he's stolen my idea. And Kaes has actually looped him on a few times as well for some of his bigger scores as well. So
I'm keen to see the run home and see if it comes to fruition that he's just ramping up for being the September specialist. Okay, what have I got? That's it for that game, I reckon. Daniel Rich did get concussed late, so is Kitty Coleman back next week? Because he's going to get another fantastic
I'm not
run.
even sure why he was out.
There was an injury, but no, I didn't see any news on it.
Yeah.
They look to miss him when he's out, like his drive off half-back. He's the next.
Yeah.
Can't remember who called it earlier. I reckon it was Cam from the Draft Doctors was pretty high on Kitty Coleman, and I just didn't see it early. And then the role change kicked in, and he's been immense.
In the preseason, it looked like he was every chance of going big this year, but then he got injured. So that was the difference.
Yep.
Everyone was on him. I think everyone had him in their classic sides early. But anyway.
To say hamstring soreness for Kitty Coleman.
Yeah.
Okay. So he could be back. Who knows?
Yeah. All right, let's move on to another cracker, Western Bulldogs versus Melbourne with checkers.
Yep, this is a good one. Melbourne kicked away early, and I'm just going to note, he didn't score the most points on ground, and he probably didn't even light up anyone's phones or anything, but I had Tommy Sparrow down at halftime in very bold text.
Yeah, you actually just sent that to me in a message, Tom Sparrow.
Yeah, he was next. That was the most next level game I've ever seen from a player. He was best on ground for me at halftime.
Yeah, I think he had a 75 or something in the end, didn't he?
So he was on 58 at halftime. He finished on 78.
Yeah.
But so I'm trying to think. He kicked a goal in the first half. He saw 17 CBAs over the game on that low time on ground. Sorry, I didn't mention his time on ground, but I think 65% time on ground. And I think after half time he might have gone on his time on ground went down because he was in the centre bounce pretty much every centre bounce for the first half.
Yeah, right. That happened a few weeks ago when Oliver was out, but that's naturally we thought just Oliver was out.
In the first half, Demons were also dominating the game, so I'm not going to say that Tom Sparrow was the result of that, but he was playing great footy in the time that Demons were dominating the game. Kicked a goal, he was tackling, and then I also noticed he was manning up on Jack McRae at every centre bounce in the second quarter because McRae had a fairly good first quarter, and then Tommy Sparrow was sort of not tagging, but putting a lot of heat on McRae, and he was doing a very good job of it. So I put it down in my notes. Tom Sparrow, never really looked at him overly. I've never thought he'd be a fantastic fantasy potential player, but he reminded me of Jack Viney, and he looked great game first half.
He's been a keeper league favourite, Tommy Sparrow, just because he's got that forward status still at the moment. He'll keep it, won't he? Because he's playing enough.
No, I don't think so.
It's just the fact he was matching it with...
It's been benching midfield.
Yeah, slow time. Yeah, that's right. No,
the fact he was matching it with Jack McRae, and he was seeing just about every CBA with Oliver, Petrarca and Viney in the side. Yeah. In that first half, half-time, I had his name that far underlined. I was like, this guy's going to have a massive year next year. Just for Classic, personally, I was like... Yeah. Put a
you do love a pod.
You do love a
huge tracker on this guy's preseason.
Yep.
Ed Richards, probably the one that everyone's looking at because he scored 106, had a 69-point second half. Caleb Daniel out of the side. Adam Treloar was playing off the halfback flank as well. And Adam Treloar was tearing up. He's probably played one of the best games he's played for the Bulldogs in a while until he did it. I think it was a hamstring or a calf. Yeah. And got subbed out. So... I don't know how far Daniel is from coming back, but
likely return this week.
But then Treloar's also likely going to miss, so that role could still be there for Ed Richards to be that slut off the halfback flank.
Treloar's no certainty to miss as well because he's had a few issues. He got subbed out real late 2 weeks ago as well. And they reckon he's just been tight and stuff so. Yeah, I can't remember who was talking about it. I think it was actually on the Traders, but apparently there's no certainty to miss again and Luke Beveridge actually said as well, they just said, he's just tight. We don't really know what's going on, but we just keep monitoring it. So
yeah, well, Ed Richards played that captain role. He was everywhere. He was doing everything. Rebounded from defence. So 106.
Yeah. I think future. He's got a huge fantasy future.
Yeah, it's just finding that role, isn't it? He's always played good games when he's got the role.
Yeah,
but then we're always worried about this player's going to take his role, or he's going to get shifted because of this, or Beveridge is going to play him somewhere differently, or he's going to play lockdown. And he played that role that we wanted to see, and he nailed it with 100 plus points.
I can't remember who was talking about it, but there was someone earlier in the season saying there was a bit of a cap squeeze at the Dogs, and I think it was they were going to get rid of one of Bailey Dale or Daniel, or I think they were going to keep Richards. So there could be a spot opening up for him a bit more next season.
Well, they've re-signed Daniel, so
it was Daniel. So it might be Bailey Dale, might be the one.
But then
shopping around. Maybe
Bailey Dale's all Australian, so I can't imagine he moves on now. But yeah,
they re-signed both anyway. But
Mitch Hannon scored 68, and he was playing an almost similar role. He's more up the ground on the wing, but he was also playing a fair bit of that rebound role. Seen him play deep forward in the past, but he did some nice things out of defence. So don't know if Treloar misses, if Daniel doesn't get up, and I'd probably put a big circle around his name for this week.
Absolutely,
because there's that same sort of rebound role, and I think something Mitch Hannon can do quite well. I had Sorry.
That's all right.
I'll fill the time by saying Bailey Dale and Caleb Daniel both re-signed this year. Bailey Dale for 5 years, Caleb Daniel for 4.
Must have been early on in the season, but they were talking about getting rid of one of them.
And Richards, I think, runs out at the end of 2023, though.
Okay.
Yeah, so he might be the one that...
I just had else in my notes. So for this game, we're talking Melbourne and Western Bulldogs, which is like, I think most classic teams will be running with a lot of these types of players. There's all the premium players come from Bulldogs in Melbourne. We're talking Max Gawn, Petrarca, Oliver, Bontempelli, Bailey Smith. You could list probably 15 players that could all be premium players. So to find a keeper league or a point of difference
it's tough.
It's a tough game.
That's fair enough.
So there wasn't a lot, but Ed Richards was a standout. Tommy Sparrow was a standout. I just want to say Jamari Ugle-Hagan kicked 5 goals. Only scored 70 points. And
77?
77.
I've got high hopes for him now.
He played a great game. He had very sticky hands, took some good grabs, but I don't think he's going to be a fantasy potential player.
Yeah, the thing, he just doesn't look like that classic key forward, though, like the one that kind of, just a big unit, sits in front of goals, has 5 kicks, kick 5 goals. He could have some games where he does tear it up.
Now, look, I don't want to say Buzz Dossier for this one, but I was light years ahead of the comp, picking him with my first pick in last year's redraft keeper leagues.
Yeah.
Look, I mean...
Did you keep him
time and time again? No, maybe.
Yeah.
Time and time again, though, you see number 1 picks be the best fantasy players as well. It's a trajectory thing.
Like Paddy McCartan?
Well, look, he's coming good now.
Who was the other one? Cam Rayner?
It's coming all right. They're all coming good.
Tom Boyd number 1?
I agree with you, though, because when his game style is much more of the Charlie Curnow type, get up the ground, I think, long term, than it is stay at home forward.
Yeah.
Josh Bruce had 2 touches again, and I think he had 3 touches last week. Norton and Waitman kicked 2 goals each, but I had in my notes that they did some really gross things as well. So it was very lucky that Jamari Ugle-Hagan stepped up, because the Dogs forward line was such a mess all game. It was like having Joshy Bruce just standing there, just filling space but not doing anything, was really frustrating to watch.
Yeah, might have helped old Oogles get through though, having that extra forward.
All right, well, if that's it from that game, we'll move on to Western Bulldogs. Sorry, we just did that. Carlton versus GWS with Dossie.
Carlton versus the G-Dubs. We had the return of Big Brucey again. Can I still mention him?
No, he's 2G.
But he misses every second week.
Yeah, he's still 2G.
All right. Well, he scored a ton despite having Briggsy in the side. So safe to say when he's the number 1, he's the dominant one. Be interesting what they do long term, though, if you've got a Flynn or a Briggs, whether they're still just relevant every second week when Brucey goes down. You definitely want to be handcuffing those guys going into the future.
Monitor that one.
Player of note, I didn't check CBAs on this one yet, but I'm pretty sure Zach Fisher was playing inside midfield in the absence of George Hewitt.
I think it was in the teens from memory, but I can't remember. I didn't actually watch this game.
Might have been Matt Kennedy then that stepped up. But.
Yeah, Matt Kennedy did a big fantasy score, but...
Zisha only had the 9, so early on it looked like he was replacing him, but no, it wasn't to be. The other player that was notable, look, we keep hoping for some defensive status for Cal Ward to come through for his capability going into next year. I think it was 18 centre bounces. He actually started forward on Adam Sard, but he didn't stay there. He went there for like 2 minutes, and then Sard just started dominating anyway. I just think, unfortunately, it's going to be such a hard keep, but you might want to still look at him next year to pick him back up as that defender eligible if they decide to roll him there. Another player on the Carlton side was a guy that I've had a bit of a crush on for a long time, and that's Will Setterfield. Finally got a ton on the scoreboard in this one, was playing on a wing, so he managed to get back in the side in this game. I think they probably pushed Chera and, like I said, Zisha inside a bit more in the absence of Hewitt, managed to squeeze in Will Setterfield, but it feels like it's kind of like his last chance at AFL level.
Been crushed by just opportunity, because I think at his best he's like got everything to be in the makings of a Bontempelli or a Fife. He's got 190 centimetres plus.
Big body.
Kicks goals. In his junior career, he was sort of clearance type player.
And when he came to Carlton from GWS, he was just so talked up as well.
That's what they were hoping for, but then he's been penned with a tagging role. He's been penned on the wing. He's been playing up forward. He's been playing defensive lockdown forward. His role has been so shot. And then now you've got the emergence of George Hewitt, Chera, Cripps, Walsh. How does he break into that midfield and become that Bontempelli type player? He's going to have to forge his own on the wing or the half forward flank, which isn't a fantasy friendly type game. It isn't the game that he was as a junior.
Managed Big game in this one, though. So positive signs, 24 touches, 8 marks, tons up. Does he hold the role when the cavalry's back? I mean, there's talk that it's Hewitt's a back injury, so might stay out for a little bit longer.
What was his actual role, though? Was he inside?
He played wing.
Yeah, but he's been wing for last 2 years.
And the 8 marks might have just contributed to the ton, I think. Yeah. Maybe just
GWS, reasonable easy matchup.
Yeah.
I
don't know. I'm not getting my hopes up, but yeah, he pops up every now and then. But tip of the cap.
Tip of the cap.
Yeah.
midfield roles tough to bring in.
Yeah.
And finally, just a little story. Now, if there's any other players you want to talk about, let me know. But just a little story on. I was telling you guys pre-show that I kept thinking for the last month, I'm like, why is everyone booing Adam Saad? I'm like, this guy's a bloody awesome player. And every time he gets it, there seems to be a boo from the crowd. I'm like, what is going on? And then they started talking about it on the broadcast about it being like a woof. And I started listening closely. And it's literally every time the ball goes on his foot, the crowd yells out woof. And it's like this history thing with Carlton. So do Google it, but no, I just was happy to know that he wasn't getting booed. So,
is there any story behind the wolf?
It's the wolf. Okay, let's look it up. This is the top story here. The wolf is one of Carlton's great modern traditions. It involves the crowd deep throating the word woof. Woof. It's WOOF.
Yeah.
At the instant of kicking by certain select individuals over the years. Originally instituted for former Saint Val Perovich, the woof has become a Carlton catch cry.
Okay.
So there's literally a list of players. So from 81 to 85, it was this guy, Val Perovich.
Yeah.
The mid-90s was Ang Christou.
Yeah.
And, okay. 05, 06 was Chris Bryan. And then 2022, Adam Saad, ?
Well, there you go.
He's definitely got the wolf because, like I said, I thought he was getting booed for weeks. I'm like, what the hell's with this?
That's a good little tidbit there.
Yeah.
I like stuff like that.
I know. The broadcast picked up and I was like, oh, okay, cool. I Googled it and there we go.
All right, cool. All right, let's move on to Collingwood versus Essendon Chiefs. Another barnstormer game that you went to. Talk us through what you saw fantasy-wise.
Fantasy-wise.
Oh, it was a shocker, wasn't it? Collingwood, no one scored over 100.
Nah, but there were some good signs. There were some really good signs here. So Collingwood kicked, 6 goals straight or something, and it was pretty dangerous signs for Essendon. And then I think Essendon kicked 8 goals to 1. So it was all over the shop. So if you really want to watch back through the game, just turn straight to the last quarter, the last 10 minutes, because the rest of the game was just... It was just
just watching. I unfortunately didn't get to see any.
It was all one-sided Collingwood, then it was all one-sided Essendon, and then the last 10 minutes is when it really heats up. So the note I'll put in before I go through any scores is just that last quarter. So Collingwood were down by 4 goals, kicked 4 goals probably the last 10 minutes of that last quarter. And they had a strong crowd. I'm talking 75,000 Collingwood fans, home game, MCG, cheering them home. So you can imagine that first goal back, the cheer was pretty loud. But imagine that when Jamie Elliott took the mark, how loud this stadium was. I'm just going to go through to the last quarter because I wrote down in my notes the players that stood up were the young boys. So we had Josh Carmichael come on as a sub and kick 2 goals in that last quarter.
Yeah.
I think he scored 30 fantasy points, but I'm not talking fantasy right now. I'm talking the players that really stood up and brought Collingwood home from a 4-goal deficit to win after the siren. Nick Dacos tore up in the last quarter. He had 9 touches, I'm pretty sure. Trent Bianco done nothing all day. And he had 6 disposals, 6 kicks in the last quarter playing along the wing. And they're all really effective and linked up.
Keeper League favourite, Trent Bianco, by the way.
Ash Johnson in his second game took a massive chest grab, mark. It was a pack grab. He kicked a point, which would have put them in front, and unfortunately kicked the point.
Was he did you say some words about him last week?
Write-up,
you did.
Yeah, she messaged me telling me to clip that video.
Yeah. And then Pat Lipinski, who has been around for a while, is still fairly young. I mean, he's fairly inexperienced and get a good crack at it, but he had a great quarter as well. So the players who stunk it up for me, Pendlebury had 2 touches. Sidebottom had 2 touches from memory in the last quarter, and Darcy Cameron had 1 touch, 1 hit out in the last quarter. So we're talking the experienced players on the side in Pendlebury and Sidebottom. They're down by 4 goals, MCG, 75,000 people. Who would you be penning in that side to stand up and bring Collingwood home? I would never have thought Josh Carmichael, Trent Bianco, Ash Johnson would be the ones to sort of bring a big win in. So, yeah, there's some good signs for Collingwood there. They've just won 8 in the trot, and the players that brought the win home were the young 2-game stars like Josh Carmichael, man, after last week.
Yeah.
Coming and kicked 2 goals after he got essentially dropped to the sub after 24 touches last week. And
10 clangers.
Yeah, we did flag that.
Yeah. No clangers because he only played a quarter. He had 5 touches this week. I also noted down, I saw Ben Hobbs tagging Nick Dacos in the second quarter. So Dacos had a very good first quarter. I think he had 30-odd fantasy points. And then his second quarter was a little bit more quiet. They put Hobbs on him, but I don't think he broke that, especially in the last quarter. He really broke away. That would probably be why he sees only scored 82, and I think would have been on track for a ton without that Hobbs touch-up. I'll go on Ash Johnson. He kicked the first goal of the game. I'm pretty sure he kicked the first 2 of the game. Last week I said he did very similar, like he was in around the Condas.
Your boy.
Yeah. He only I think he was disposalist in the second and third quarter.
Not your boy.
So 3 first quarter goals. And then that massive... He didn't kick the goal, which sort of sucked, but he took this really big, important grab that got Collingwood back in the game. Like, it sort of like gave a bit of hope that they... And it kept the ball locked down in their forward line as well when he kicked the point. So it was very, like, important point in the game. Like, this is only, didn't change the score, but it changed sort of momentum that Essendon couldn't break away. But yeah, I said last week, I'm pretty sure I listened back to it because I wanted to see what I said. I couldn't remember exactly. But I said, like, everyone's going to jump on Carmichael and everyone will be all excited about it, these touches and stats. But Ash Johnson... 193 centimetres, very versatile sort of like player. He plays like a third tall, but he's also very quick and like athletic. So he took a massive pack grab. It would have been like close to mark of the day.
Pretty sure he was playing in the amateur league here in Adelaide like 2 years ago as well.
You get
3 years ago.
honorary Buzz Lightyear status for checkers.
Being light years ahead.
Yeah. But anyways, he lived with Shane McAdam and Jai Farrar in Adelaide, so he's of good pedigree, and I'm pretty sure he's also related to Sam Franceschi-Seaton. So
there you go.
There's some good pedigree in his bloodline, and he's one to watch. I think he's just very dangerous around goals, and especially with it takes a bit of heat away from Myercheck. And
how do I have one from the chat just asking about Jamie Elliott? What was his game like in terms of fantasy?
Yeah, just he bobs up and down there every now and then. He kicked a few important goals, and it was just a standard like high half forward sort of game. Other than that last goal he kicked,
10 CBAs as well. Has that been regular, the CBAs?
Well, I think was
no Degoe.
So he just goes in and
just a rotation. You didn't really notice him too much in the middle. One thing to flag: Zach Merritt only had like 7 CBAs. Played on the wing. I think Jai Caldwell had the most CBAs on ground. So
was he tagging again? Because he had like 50 in fantasy.
Who's this? Jai
Caldwell.
Yeah, I couldn't see the tag. It was Hobbs that I really picked up on Dacos.
Okay. Why did Merritt move out? That's weird.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Merritt played a cracky game anyway on the wing.
Still scored heaps.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about, like I mentioned at the top of the show, earlier in the show, my woes of my keeper league, but we thought it was going to be Grundy coming back that ruined the Darcy Cameron, and because he was going to be probably coming back to be relevant for the keeper league pod if Grundy did come back and ruin that role, but bloody Mason Cox with 18 centre bounces.
He was definitely their number one ruck.
Said g'day and see you later.
He did plenty around the ground. Only scored 60. He's never going to be a massive fantasy scorer. I think he's probably only cracked the ton once or twice in his career. But yeah, he took almost a Mark of the Year nomination because I think he sat on Andrew Phillips' head, so it wasn't quite the smallest head on the ground, and Mason Cox isn't quite the smallest guy.
Was that talked about? I just didn't see that stuff.
There were so many marks on Sunday.
What was the go with Cameron
Cox was number one ruck. Well, I didn't see the game at all, but I heard that he was the number one ruck essentially, and Cameron was up forward. Is that right?
Cameron,
like why?
Definitely. Are they preparing for Grundy to come back, and that's the role Cameron's going to play? I don't know. That's my theory.
Fair enough.
Could be it.
Yeah, maybe.
But, just one last thing before we move on to the next game, because we do need to move on because we're a long way into this podcast. Essendon at the moment, over the last 3 weeks, are the hardest team to score against fantasy-wise by an absolute country mile. So. Looking at all the across the board on the positions, there is no position that averages over 60 or over 59.7. That's in the ruck against Essendon over the last 3 weeks. And they're coming against North Melbourne this weekend, which is, I think people might be thinking about Aaron Hall. I think even one of my leagues has got the C on him. So, I'd be kind of wary of that one just because no one's really scoring against Essendon in the last 3 weeks. So, interesting one.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
I'd still back in Hall.
Anyway, let's get through West Coast versus St Kilda quickly, Dossie.
I can be pretty quick because there's not a stack to talk about. But Jai Culley, obviously his second game of AFL, and my God, he's probably already our best player at the Weagles. He had an unreal game. Scored 87 points, so already becoming
your best player,
fantasy relevant. He probably is our best player. 19 touches, 4 marks, and 7 tackles. What I saw a bit more of this week was his uncontested game, which I think I mentioned last week. I was like, is he a Hugh Greenwood guy that really loves the contest and doesn't do much outside?
More cheap peel this week?
Had some cheap peel, 9 uncontested touches to his 8 contested, but still did the dirty work inside. And look, he's got a long way to go, obviously, as a young player, but he's already putting up 2 fieldable scores in a row as a forward-eligible player. He probably just becomes a midfielder almost straight away next year, though, because he's just playing pure inside. They mentioned at West Coast as well that they're going to just play the kids basically in the midfield on the run home.
It's good to hear.
I think we saw... Who else did we see? I mean, Bailey Williams actually played pretty well in the ruck finally. Yeah, he actually stood up. I was surprised. Xavier O'Neill had a run inside as well. Low time on ground, but 14 centre bounces. He's not anyone to write home about in your fantasy world, though. But probably just one side. So anyway, Culley's a great keeper league prospect. Obviously, pick him up, stash him away for next year, field him this year. Windhager for the Saints. I've been a bit of a fan myself this year, just watching the way he goes about it. But one of his first kind of fantasy relevant games, 84 points, 23 touches, 5 marks, 3 tackles, but completely clamped Tim Kelly to 17 points.
Really 4 disposals, isn't it?
4 touches.
Yeah. I really hope I mentioned that on the Waiver Wire podcast, because if he's going to be playing in the midfield and just following players around, he's going to be led to the footy, and he can score like this. Plus, the tackle numbers will be out there as well.
My goodness.
Saints were very about him as well. The Saints socials and the Saints group, a lot of posts about him in there. So that's good news when you see them sort of hyping up players. I think he would have been their player of the week, or they put an Instagram post up straight after the game about it.
He's big, strong body for a young kid. And the way he's got, I said earlier in the year when he was playing, like, I was surprised that he managed to get a good score up this year. But he's got a lot to like about him. I will flag though, do you think any of these players come back in for the Saints? Because you've got some pretty nice players running around the VFL that could also be those free agent pickups we're talking about. Dan Hann on his second game back.
There's talk of him coming back.
He got in the high 20s first week, 25 touches second week. I'm strongly looking at him. And also Mitch Owens has had another strong performance with 24 touches. So, just something to monitor. They've got a couple of midfielders in the wings, but I'd also be looking at those if you're... either Dan Hann for people competing, maybe you could bring him in, and then Mitch Owens
didn't play as well,
and Zach Jones was in there, but Mitch Owens would be one to stash away as well in your keepers at the end of the year here.
All right,
one other one.
Okay,
backup ruck. Who was it for West Coast? It was a different role. So I'm trying to remember. I'm just checking. Yeah, so Josh Rotham played forward ruck. So he's a defender-eligible player, I think, Josh Rotham.
Yeah.
Played defence like most of his career. 2 goals, 14 touches, 7 marks, and he had 8 hit-outs as well, scored 88 points. So
he's not very easy. How tall is he? I'm pretty...
Yeah, he wouldn't be massive. 193 centimetres.
Yeah.
So kind of like that. So kind of like your... I mean, Jeremy Finlayson's a bit bigger, but that sort of mould in terms of plays forward, ruck, I think it's just a tip of the cap for now. We won't go picking up him.
Nick Nat comes back in and...
Yeah.
It's
Dixon comes back in,
All right. Any others?
Joke, by the way.
Did you mention Mason?
No.
Okay. It's
annoying.
20 every 3 weeks or something.
Well, last 5, he's averaging 78. Last 3, averaging 89. Had 93 last week.
Is he forward eligible, though?
Yeah. I think he is, yeah.
He is?
So, it could be a sneaky one.
Yeah, look, it's against West Coast. I don't know if he scores that again this year.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah.
He's had a few big scores this year.
He has, but I just can't bring myself to do it.
All right, we'll wrap up the round rewind, and so if you enjoyed the round rewind and it brings value to your week and helps you find some fantasy gems here and there, please consider supporting us and becoming a member. Essentially, if we don't have members, we can't do this show each week. We don't have the time to really do it without your support. So, if you do choose to support us, you'll get our weekly CBAs, kick-in numbers, scores for and against, projection numbers, breakout tracker, the pod, and much, much more.
So I should mention, on those St Kilda pickups, even more valuable in that, the fact I didn't mention Billings went down instantly, was out for the game, and then Gresham at the end of the game came out sore as well. So
there might be a few ins there.
Could be a couple of ins, and they just given that their fantasy relevance, those guys could come in and score immediately for you.
Yeah, if it's a Mitch Owens or something like that, it could be handy again. Anyways, back to the membership read. So you get all those things, and each week we thank 15 of our gold members now, because we're trying to get through them all by the end of the season. So you really struggle with the names this week, and I'm not going to put it on checkers, so I'll do it this week, guys. I'll take off the team. So thank you to the following gold members: Rahat Khan, Chloe Williams, Paul, Sam Button, Andrew Simmons, Tyler Waters, Sam Dylan Smith, Michael Grossman, Andrew Kieran, Dale Travers, who I'm playing this week actually in my Keeper League final, and Cam Olsen, Neil Turner, Matthew Pham, and Lockie Pound. So thank you to those players, members there. Anyway, let's move on to the most important segment of the week, Trudge Watch. It's got Trudge's numbers up there. I'll just do this real quick. 15. Move on.
I'll do it.
105. Yeah,
what did he score?
105, I think it was.
Points. I'll do it.
Just do 105. Just say 105 points, and then just move on.
We need to milk this a bit.
We are 72 minutes.
I'll get
those. There isn't that many questions though. If we get the theme song, I'll point to you when the theme song's finished. Watch.
Trudge, pull that trudge. Trudge, watch out, pull that trudge.
All right, it's my favourite segment, Trudge Watch. G'day, Trudge. I know he's a big fan. He's probably watching right now. 29 disposals, 3 marks, 5 tackles for the Trudge for a whopping 105 points in what we probably deem a best on ground performance. I didn't check, but somebody else had 35 touches. But forget about Handley. It's all about the Trudge.
I don't know who that is. Just interestingly, he actually jumped into the DMs after we posted the clip of us talking about him last week. So he actually messaged us on Instagram and basically said he'd come across it because one of his friends is a fantasy nuffin, so hey, Trudge, you're being talked about. And he actually listened to it and couldn't believe his ears, and it made his day apparently. So yeah, Trudge is on board. He reckons we've gained a loyal listener for life. So
we might have to have a chat to him, I think, at some point, and we'll be forward to drafting him next year in our keepers, hopefully.
Yeah, we're going to start a campaign, I think, in the off-season, hashtag draft.
Yeah.
So anytime you see a draft article, you have to put hashtag draft to Trudge under it. So, but we'll ramp that up later. But anyway, let's move on.
Check his maybe keepers out there getting stuff trending.
Let's move on to the listener questions. I reckon VFL scores when I pull them on Sunday night. There's always adjustments on Monday. So there's always 1 or 2 points off. But then, the next week when I update it, it's right again.
Yeah, that's because they go back. The champion data people go back, and there's they do their first run when it's live, and obviously you're calling it live, and they'll go back and rewatch the footage on some of it.
I need to actually check if Kaes did his article this week. Hopefully he did. He usually does. All right. Coolism. First question of the week comes from eHumus1. What to make of Callum Brown, GWS? A couple of good scores, a bad one. Rostering with a 40-man squad. Dossie, you watched the GWS game?
Yeah, I reckon he's playing defence again, though, in this one. So the one game he scored really well was that weird soaking wet game, if you recall, and I think he kicked 3 goals.
Yeah, I watched GWS last week and didn't even notice him. So
he went all right in this one. I think he scored in the 70s, but... Yeah, I don't even know what to make.
40-man roster, though. He's still only a 5th game player, isn't he? 6th game player now.
40 man, though, that's a lot. You could probably stash away someone like that.
Yeah, you can stash away.
Especially the unknowns about GWS's
they're going to lose a heap of players.
List this year. You could do worse, and even just a stash, see where he's at next year.
If I had a 40-man,
just drop him and find
someone. If I had a 40-man squad, I'd have him on there.
If I had a 40-man squad, I'd have a few red dots in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Take it playing.
Yeah, go for it.
100%. Yeah. At Rust2468, I didn't watch the Pies versus Dons match, but did you notice anything about Will Snelling's role? That was a good one, actually, because he was quite a good scorer last year. What was Snelling doing?
Snelling things, half forward. I didn't rate his game too much. He scored very well and he had a lot of the ball. He had 8 tackles.
Yeah.
So it was that defensive forward type, pressure forward. But he fumbled a lot of the ball at important times as well, which was annoying to watch. So fantasy scored great, but I'm sure that 8 tackles impressive, but there was some important moments in the game. I was just like, wow, Will Snelling's just not up to the grade today.
Yeah, okay.
It's interesting though now, because I think I mentioned him a few weeks ago being last year his tackle numbers are the reason he scored really well, and that wasn't sustainable. But as you're saying, they're a tough team to score against because of their bloody pressure. And I think he's one of those guys that brings it up. So I don't know, maybe he's going to return to his high tackling ways in this new kind of system that they're rolling out in the last few weeks.
Yeah. Were tackle numbers the reason why he scored so well last year? I thought he was just finding a lot more of the footy.
I think in this one he had 20 touches and 8 tackles. I think from memory he had some really good tackle numbers last year. I'll look it up while you get to the next question.
Yeah. At 7777, hey guys, thanks for the cracking pod. Looking for teams that are likely to have forwards that score well in rounds 22 and 23, which are his league finals. Is it easy as picking forwards that are playing against North and West Coast? Like, yeah, absolutely. Like, that's what I would do. If I didn't have like players in mind, if you're just looking for waiver-wise streamers, yeah, definitely look at the players that kind of generally give up points. And you find it's more so an indication of floor more so than ceiling, but it's more likely that less likely to go low against those teams. And, not necessarily ton up each time or anything like that, but it's more so they probably put up when they're usually putting up, if a guy usually puts up a 60, he might put up a 70 or an 80 type thing against those type of teams. So that's more what I look at it for, more so than trying to find big scores. But Dossie, you look like you have something to say about Snelling?
Yeah, tackle numbers last 2020 and have been 4.6 per game and 4.8 for a forward. That's awesome. This year it's down to 3. But yeah, obviously 8 on the weekend. I don't know. It's one. He hasn't done it all year apart from this one, but he's also been out for a while and just coming back 5 games in. So maybe give it a crack against, what did you say, North Melbourne this week?
Yeah, was that what it was?
I'd be willing to give him a crack if he's still available.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely, absolutely. This is a forward for sure. At Ant G25. Nick Martin have forward status next year. Seems to have been on the wing most of the year. I'll always love him either way. What was his role on the weekend? Wing again?
Yeah, same.
I reckon he loses it just from what I've seen. Kaes is most of the Bombers.
He kicks a goal. Like, he still bobs up on the scoreboard a fair bit.
Yeah, Bombers do though.
Yeah.
You see, you saw Dill Stevens push forward. You saw Culley kick one on the weekend. That's 2 off the top of my head. Wingers. Yeah. Seem to push up a bit. At Ranger J87. Hey gents, my team, the Butterchooks, just snuck into the final this round with a bit of help from matchups. Need a solid mid-forward option this week. Who would you bring in out of the following waivers? Round 20, Will Snelling, which, kind of like if he's playing up against North. Lockie O'Brien, Luke Bruce. I'm assuming that if it's a forward option, that's probably Lockie Young.
Yeah, I'm going Snelling off those.
No, sorry, Lewis Young.
I'm going Snelling out of those options purely for the matchup. And like we said, maybe he kicks into gear and starts laying some tackles, and he can hit all stat lines. Last year, I think it was 17 touches, 4 marks, 5 tackles. Like, that's the sort of guy you want if he does hit some form. That's a player that you can play for at least this week versus North.
Yeah, overall, North do give up a lot of points to forwards, just interestingly as well. Over the last 3 weeks, North are very middle of the road for forwards, but I'd still back him in on the form, I think. Just from last week. So I'd take Snelling as well to those. Who have Hawthorn got this week? That's the other one. Are they coming up against someone hard? So I just want to see Bruce. St Kilda. No, because Bruce can sometimes get on the end of a bag if they're against an easier opponent. But St Kilda again, another middle of the road team for forward. So I go Snelling. All right. Paul Milne, is Rowbottom getting pushed to the background with the emergence of so many other Swans and Young Guns? I didn't check the CBAs, but he did score. Up, didn't he? I think we actually missed this game completely.
What are you talking about?
Did we go through the Crows game? Or did I can't actually remember. I thought I had him in there. We went through. I had him in there. Must have deleted him. Damn.
Yeah, because we talked about, we spent 15 minutes on Robbie Fox.
That's right. I had him in there, but I must have deleted him. Oh, no, because he's 2G4P. That's right. I did write about him, but he's actually, because he averaged 80 last year, he's 2G4P. So he was playing more of that kind of inside mid role. So he's been thrown about the last few years, so onto a wing, into a forward and stuff like that. He seems to be playing that kind of more accountable midfield, that kind of inside role at the moment.
Mills moved out, so was he playing a wing?
Yeah,
there you go. That's it. CBA for him.
Yeah.
And Buddy, Rowbottom 22.
Yeah, but he's been doing this on and off this season as well. So I just think they need someone to move out. Now, how was Luke Parker? Off the top of your head.
30, I reckon, or 29.
But I'm just thinking maybe 2 or 3 years, he might be the one that kind of moves in there.
2 or 3 years' time, though, James Rowbottom would be past his use by almost his breakout, wouldn't he?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, that's the only way I can see. If someone needs to move out, so like we said, we saw Mills move out to a wing this week. Might happen.
I always used when he was coming up, I thought he's going to be a huge fantasy player, Rowbottom. He showed so many early, but I'm still high, 70% TOG for that big score. So I don't know. I reckon you're right, Hef. I reckon he'll move into that role in the next couple of years with a bit more time on ground.
Yeah, and I don't see him being a huge fantasy scorer, but I reckon he could be like a 90 average guy when he like puts everything together.
I could see a ton.
You see a ton? Tons are hard to come by these days. A lot of fantasy scoring is lower these days.
Chad Warner's going to average 130. He's going to go 100.
It was pretty funny seeing Rocky on Wednesday and Thursday night, just kind of saying like how none of the fantasy scorers these days are as big as him. So it just kept reminding everyone that. So it's kind of true.
There's an interesting post to one of the forums. Who's the player that's tearing up? Rory Laird.
Yeah.
Being like, is that Rory Laird's 140 3-game average the highest of all time?